The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? When it all starts slipping away, it's not always pretty, but you can still have a bit of grace. Amber and Scott discuss this after watching Goodrich. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
I feel both attacked and seen.
Yes, you did identify with our main character of this episode's film, Goodrich. Andy Goodrich's life is upended when his wife and mother of their 9-year-old twins enters a 90-day rehab program, leaving him on his own with their young kids. Thrust into the world of modern parenthood, Goodrich leans on his daughter from his first marriage, Grace, as he ultimately evolves into the father Grace never had.
Man, I have heard this story in real life so many times.
Yeah,
you didn't have to dig too far for this one. And let me tell you, this one probably wouldn't hit too close to home if you didn't live in LA. But since we do, wow, it hit very close.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for a guy in our town to have a daughter who's 36 and also a daughter who's 9.
Yes. Now, mind you, that is not how I'm seen. But I guess we're going to get into this a little bit here as the what would you do part. But I felt like Andy was a well-meaning person, like consistently, even as you go back to his past, like for raising his first daughter, he was well-meaning, but
he was focused on his job.
He didn't know better.
He was focused on his job, so he was always traveling and out he owned an art gallery, so he was always entertaining or going to events or going to gallery openings, and therefore he wasn't really there for his daughter, Grace.
And you don't realize that someone's hated you for 30 years until, they've hated you for 30 years, and you find out later.
Yeah, so when Andy gets remarried and he has twins who in this film are 9 years old, and Grace sees him having to step up when his current wife, his second wife, checks herself into rehab for taking pills, which he didn't even notice. And I think this is the part of when you're saying you feel seen and attacked is kind of his lack of observation of what was going on around him. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that I myself am rather ADHD, and as such, we either don't focus at all or we hyper focus. But either way, it's very easy for us to miss the details around us. And
that's what Andy did, but his thing wasn't because of ADHD. It was because he worked a lot and he was gone a lot, and it seemed that everyone was aware of his wife's problem except for him. So when she checks herself into rehab and she's gone for 90 days, Andy has to step up and really be a parent to his twins who are 9 years old, and that's where Grace starts saying, like, wow, you actually are capable of being a parent and a dad, and kind of has a silent resentment until it all kind of just comes out one big blurt. So
it's interesting watching this and all this in a way and giving a slightly different perspective. I was watching a YouTube short, actually I think it was today, coincidentally, and there's just one creator. It's a woman who tends to show things from a pro-male perspective. And as you know, I am generally anti-male. I think we are the worst. But because we really are.
You are very aware of
that.
But
she does that. And I saw one video, and it was usually she finds videos and she comments on them, and it says how men see their wives. And he walked into the kitchen, and she is just like dressed to the nines, and she's doing something over the sink, like washing dishes over the sink, and she's just incredibly hot. And then you cut to reality, and her hair is up. She's wearing like a tattered shirt, and she's just around the house doing house chores. It's actually quite accurate, is that when you, especially as a guy, when you love someone, you can very easily attempt to block out the negative and not want to see anything that could be bad. That's not to say you don't at all, but in a way, I could see how he would miss this. Because he wouldn't want to think, he's not going to think, oh, I'm married to a drug addict.
I don't think that was the point, though. I think the point is that he was so absentee that he didn't see what even his 9-year-old daughter could see.
Yes, I'm sure that's part of it, but I'm sure they saw each other, and I'm sure that he could have seen the signs. He could have. I mean, maybe not as well as other people could.
He didn't.
Yeah, he didn't, but that's the thing. It's like I don't think it's because he necessarily was a bad husband.
He just wasn't present. I mean, that was the thing, and that was the point when Grace grew up with him as a dad, is he was always out and about and never home. And he did the same thing with his new family. The only thing that changed is his second wife checked herself into rehab, and he had to step up because there was no one else to. And then he had to learn how to take care of his kids and remembered that his son was allergic to peanuts when he ordered Chinese food and they had peanuts in them. And he had to actually learn about his children and step up to be the parent that he hadn't been even for them. So Grace at that point realized, like, wow, he's actually capable of doing this, and he's doing it for his new family, but he didn't do it for me.
Yeah, a lot of bitterness on this. As the movie was going, I thought to myself, an alternate name for this movie could have been Collateral Damage, because he was trying to build a life for his family. He was trying to build out his business. He was trying to provide. Because that's the thing, as a guy.
I didn't get that.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. As a guy, you are kind of conditioned to be a provider.
But he never mentioned of, I do all of this for you. He did it because that was his interest and his passion. It was something that actually he and his first wife shared, was being in the art community. And not once did he allude to, I'm doing this for you, I'm doing this for my family. I think he did it because that's what he did and that's what he loved. And he had had that art gallery for 28 years. I think he just did it because it was something he loved, and he had no qualms about doing it and growing it and fostering it and making it flourish. And if that meant he wasn't home very much, then he wasn't home very much. It's interesting that you and I have a very different perspective here.
Yeah, but I actually think my perspective is right. I'm actually coming from I'm coming from the male perspective on this. But
he didn't say that. You're making assumptions.
You're right. Of course he didn't say it because of the rest of his personality. And it's interesting. He was very typical LA person. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Nothing is fine. He's going to put up a front to everyone that.
Well, it was fine until recently, and he had been struggling for the last year or so, and to get the gallery on the positive side. So let's dig into some of the what would you do here in the movie. So, what would I do if, let's say, I am Grace, his first daughter? I would feel the same way Grace did. I can't imagine that I would do a lot differently. So there was one scene where Grace helps him kind of woo this new client going to an event with him. And in appreciation, he was like, I have the night off. I don't have the kids. Why don't we go out for ice cream? And she kind of lights up and says, yeah, I would really like that. And then the phone rings, and it's his daughter, his 9-year-old daughter. And she needs to be picked up from the sleepover because she didn't feel well.
Yeah, and I got the impression from Grace the whole time that she truly understood. Like, she understood that him going to get his daughter at that point was the correct thing to do. But in the same report, she was like, damn, that sucks that he's now that person who's going to do that for her when he wasn't around to do it for me. And even now, I'm the collateral damage.
Well, I think you see this too in marriages sometimes, is someone's married and they have a certain relationship and then they get divorced and they get remarried, and then someone sees that person act in a different way in their new relationship, like, wow, he didn't do that with me, or I didn't know he was capable of that, or her.
Oh, you need only have a conversation with my mother about this. Hi, Mom. I've heard stories.
I don't know what that means, but
really, that's what happened. That's what happens a lot here. Is that, I mean, my dad. I'm not sure if he and Dell actually. I don't think he and Dell are actually married, but they effectively are. And like, she's like, oh, he's taking her on cruises and going things and doing all these things with her that he didn't do with me, and like. Yeah, I mean, and
that happens.
You're completely right.
That happens a reasonable amount, where I don't think it's a foreign concept to anyone, and people always think, why couldn't that person have been like that with me? And I think not having been in that situation and only speculating on my part, but I think sometimes it's just because it just wasn't that kind of match. And sometimes you need a certain kind of connection or chemistry or just dynamic to bring out different parts of you. It's like sometimes people have a part of their personality that comes out with different friends. And I think it's the same thing in relationships of different people bring out different things in you.
I actually disagree with you on this one. I think
Imagine
I think it's a concept of when you know better, you do better. And when you're younger,
That could be for a relationship, sure.
You don't know better. And also when you're younger, you think basically I have all the time in the world. Like I can work now and she'll still be there. And then later on, we'll be able to do all these things. And then later never comes because you weren't there. And as you get later in life and you realize that you have fewer and fewer years left, you start to really understand that the things that matter the most aren't working. It's the time with the loved ones. But to your point, it even took Goodrich the misfortune of his new wife, going into rehab and him being forced to have this perspective about family and everything. Like she did everything, like anything with the family, like she did. So he didn't know what to do. He didn't see all of this stuff. Once he saw it and once he experienced it, it became more important to him to be in that phase of his life. Whereas when he was younger, he just wasn't.
That's interesting. And I really do actually find this fascinating that you and I saw the same film and have very different takes on it.
Well, honestly, I really do believe this is a gender thing. This is very much a gender thing.
Because I don't see that it was this opportunity for him to step up and do all these things. I just saw it as like it was something he had to do. His wife was in rehab for 90 days, and this was something he had to do. And it's like, okay, fine, I'm going to try and be good at this.
But that's the thing. I mean, you say he had to do it. Yes and no. There's a lot of things people have to do that they don't.
Well, if
like
you
even
have
if it's
not 2 9-year-olds and your wife is away for 90 days in rehab,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
There are still people who are going to F that situation up. I mean, they just are. I mean, there's people who just aren't capable.
Well, I think his kids also kept him accountable as well. Of like, our mom always puts a glass of water for me on my nightstand when I go to bed to sleep. And, ultimately he gets to a point where he puts some water on the nightstand. So back to the what would you do stuff. I mean, what would you do if you were in Andy Goodrich's shoes? Would you step up or would you hire help and still do what you were always doing?
I mean, based on where he was at that point, I think he had to step up. I mean, his business is not doing well. And when you own your own company, if your business is not doing well, you're not doing well.
See, and I think that would be a good reason not to step up, is because your business actually is kind of tanking. You're hemorrhaging money. You're on the verge of laying off everyone you've employed. And so I actually think that would actually be a very legitimate excuse.
Hiring another person isn't the answer at that point. Like, you need to cut back. And hiring somebody else.
There's a difference between personal expenses as a nanny and professional expenses.
I mean, yes, from a tax perspective, but let me tell you, when you're the owner and it's your name on there, those two things can become very intertwined very quickly. And you have to think about one with the other. I mean, I've been there. I know this for a fact. Right? I've had to think about that. So I think he just thought, this is just something else now I have to do. Like, I'm going to add this to my plate, and I'm going to do it. And he wasn't sure how he was going to do it, but he was going to do it.
Yeah. And he did get better over the course of those 90 days. But towards the end of the film, something I don't think we mentioned is Grace, his first daughter, is pregnant. And we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. And she's going in for her, what we suspect is her last appointment before she gives birth. And Andy Goodrich is supposed to pick her up. And his wife basically walks in the door as he's doing stuff around the house and, hey, honey, I'm back. I think we should just be friends. And she says, you have a lot going on. You're going to be a grandfather. And he's like, oh my gosh, I forgot I'm supposed to pick up Grace. And Grace, once again, feels as the neglected first child of the practice marriage or the practice child. And gives up on him and takes an Uber to go see the doctor.
That was an insanely unfortunate situation, which was
But I think he would have forgot. It had nothing to do with. He said, "Oh, it's because my wife showed up after 90 days," but he should have been gone already by the time she showed up. He just forgot.
I mean, maybe I don't know the
Because that's
time.
who he was.
Well, but it seemed like that was the thing, is that it was unfortunate situation after unfortunate situation after unfortunate
It's not like
situation.
he had his keys in his hand and was headed towards the car. I mean,
Yeah, but we don't know the exact timing on that. He was thinking about it, and then I mean, here's the thing, if you've had your wife check into rehab, she said, "I'm leaving you." You've had letters returned, no messages of in any way, shape, or form returned. You've heard nothing in 90 days except "I'm leaving you."
That's a good. What would you do?
And,
Would you
and then that
actually-
person steps and walks in the door.
of their home, your shared home.
I guarantee you anything, and I mean anything that was on your brain at that point is gone. And that is
Probably.
that is the only freaking thing you're going to see.
See, and I think I agree with you, but I think he would have forgotten anyway, because that was the dynamic that he had with Grace. Is he always forgot? She always came in second. She always kind of, she complained that I don't hear from you unless you need to know how to make a baked potato. Like, you don't check in with me. You don't say hi to me. Like, we don't have a really good relationship. And the irony of how this film ended is that Grace had a daughter. So it was like a third chance for Andy to
Not.
do better.
But see, I feel like near the end, he was getting it together.
Yeah.
Like, he was getting to the point where he had a better relationship with Grace, and he was starting to remember, and he was getting better.
Yeah.
And this circumstance that was so out of the norm, so mind-blowing, caused him to appear to be that old person again. And frankly, the fact that he even remembered it when it was said tells me that
about being a grandfather.
yeah, that it was important enough to him. Like,
I think it boils down to number one, awareness, and number two of when sometimes it takes life circumstances to make us look at things a little differently. And as he closed his gallery and Grace was there, and she had said a couple of things about how you haven't been there for me. And probably for the first time, his life was at a point where he wasn't spinning 100 plates, and probably heard that more clearly than he might have in the past.
maybe, I don't know. It felt like an impossible situation. Like, here's a what would you do? If you're a parent, you have twins, identical twins. They're
not identical.
No. In my scenario, they're identical
okay.
twins. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, they're in a house by themselves, a mile away from you.
Okay, this has nothing to do with
Yeah,
the film.
in opposite directions.
Okay.
You get phone calls at the exact same time that says both of their houses are on fire.
Oh no.
So both your twins are a mile away from you, both sides.
Okay.
Both houses are on fire.
Oh geez.
What do you do? It's an impossible situation because you can't make that
I
decision.
mean, I would assume I like one better than the other side.
Well,
Probably
they're
say that
identical,
one.
so you probably don't
Well,
even.
that doesn't matter.
You probably don't even
can
know.
Look identical and still have.
Well, no,
different
they're
personalities.
identical. Well, which one's where? We don't know.
Which one?
We don't know which one's at which house.
Oh, so I can't pick the one. I
Yeah,
like
we don't
better?
even know which house they're in. So yeah, you don't even know which one's your
Wow.
favorite.
I don't know.
But see, that's the thing. It's an impossible situation, and I felt like he got put in, maybe not that extreme, but he got put in those situations over and over. Of I'm going to screw something up.
See, you're giving him this level of self-awareness of I'm going to screw something up, and I just didn't see it that way.
Yeah, because I've lived that life. I know that mindset. Like I know when I didn't open with I see attack, I feel seen and attacked for no reason. I related to him in many, many ways, and knowing sometimes that yeah, you're going to be in a situation where you're just going to F something up, and you're just not sure which one is going to be a bigger problem to F up. So sometimes you get paralysis and you just F them both up.
Okay.
Well, that's great. That's freaking fantastic.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.